I sent Yui and Donovan like $500,000 or something, and they bought the weed and then proceeded to fuck me around. Today we're going to be telling a story, the start of the end. My co-defendant was Cedar, right? This guy, I had known him for maybe like 2 years or something at this point, but so our situation was like, I met him through, I think these dudes I was blowing glass with. I think that's how I met him. And like they were buying weed from him, and then he came over and I got his number. And so I was buying weed from him. I went to Canada for a vacation, came back, told him what's up, then we went up there. So we were pretty much like partnered up right from the start of my whole thing. He had like, I don't know, he said he had done some stuff in Canada or whatever, but I don't know. He was a notorious liar and thief, so I mean, I didn't know that at the time, unfortunately. We got a place, like, so this was kind of a weird situation with this place, because it was like, him and I put in a application on a place to get a lease. In the place that we got busted in, we put in an application there, and they just never contacted us back. I think they just didn't want it. They just didn't want it. But it was super expensive for really, it was kind of cool, but way overpriced. We didn't give a shit. So in that time though, I mean, literally like 6 weeks or maybe even 2 months, literally like forever. But it could have been a month. You know, I can't remember exactly. I just remember it being a long ass time. So in that time, what had happened was Cedar had gotten ripped off by somebody somehow. I had like things were going really good for me. So we had this load come in, and this freaking POS stole a freaking pound of weed from me right out of my fucking house. Like, he had been leaving his weed at my house forever. When I all of a sudden had like tons more weed than him, like I don't know, I think maybe I got 20 pounds and he only got like 7 or 10 or whatever. And so he was super fucking jealous. And just an overall POS. So this fucker steals a pound of weed, right? And I know it was him because, like, literally, you know, I packed up the shit in Canada. It was all sealed with little locks on the bags that were all still on there. And then he was in my house, and then he goes, okay, I gotta go. And he puts his bag up on his shoulder and leaves, not leaving his weed at my house, which he had been leaving his weed at my house. So I know he did, right? So I should have fucking already just totally been fuck this guy, you know? But unfortunately, I was just thinking I could, you know, just not let that happen again and get even or something, you know? These people all of a sudden, they're like, oh yeah, well no, they were all of a sudden, I think like I fucking was like, I hounded them like, hey, what's up? And they're like, oh, okay. So then we got it, and we got this place. Cedar was keeping the fucking, this douchebag around him all the time. What the fuck was his name? So Cedar was on probation. The story was, you know, he was on probation in Washington County for some weed-related shit. He had an address that he was saying he lived at, which he had an address, which I stayed up there a while too, in Brightwood, Mount Hood, basically, on the way up to Mount Hood. Ideal place to snowboard, but Cedar was a big snowboarder. I wasn't a huge snowboarder, I was a snowboarder. I'd like to get back into it. Unfortunately, this last 5 years has just been, I just haven't been able to do it. So anyway, this guy I don't remember his name. Louis, maybe? So anyway, he was from the mountains. So you got all these snowboarders. They all stay up there at Brightwood, you know, and they're all slinging packs of weed to fucking get by to, you know, snowboard all the time. This dude's hanging out with him all the time, and this was after shit had really started going south with Cedar. Like, he had been busted fucking, like, using, like, my money and my crew's money that I had sent up to this crew. Then they sent him my weed and my crew's weed, right? So I sent Huey and Donovan like $500,000 or something, and they bought the weed and then proceeded to fuck me around, saying, oh, we can't find anything, we can't find anything. Meanwhile, they sent the weed down through their own smuggler and delivered it to Cedar. So Cedar had all my money and everybody's money, right? So all this shit was like basically figured out, right? And Cedar was going to be in some deep shit for this fucking bullshit. And Huey and Donovan as well. Bunch of fucking pieces of shit stealing from people. All because all their justification is because I was charging them a per pound fee to get their weed smuggled through my crew. That's called fucking capitalism. Like, I had a crew and I have these guys, so, you know, and they didn't like that, so they decided to fucking basically rip me off, right? Well, again, it was lucky for Cedar that the fucking bust happened. I mean, seriously. He was working with just all kinds of fucking numbnuts. I mean, he was just like desperate to push weight. He had fucked so many people over. He had a horrible reputation. And now he's like trying to push all this weight. So he's just giving it to fucking people. Well, he gives it to this guy fucking... So this fucking guy, he's just like this rave guy, you know, party guy, and, you know, going down to Vegas and buying ecstasy and selling ecstasy at parties and, you know, slinging weed and all this shit, right? I don't remember that guy's name. Anyway, so he was introduced to him by this guy fucking Tony Ring Ring. Tony Ring Ring was like this Asian Hawaiian dude that was super popular and hip and all that shit, and just in the middle of everything on a superficial level, you know, because he didn't have any money, so he was always like trying to hook people up and all this shit, middleman stuff. Well, it was Doug. That was this guy's name. So this Tony hooked Cedar up with Doug. Doug was like, yeah, I can fucking, you know, I don't know what the exact deal was. Maybe he was supposed to switch the weed for ecstasy or just get the money. I don't know. But he took pounds of Cedar's weed to Vegas, supposedly. Maybe he got ripped off or whatever the story was. He never came back with the money. I had offices and all this shit in the warehouse where the nightclub was. I mean, this place was just fucking riddled with fucking offices and cubby holes and all this stuff. And, you know, Cedar was around there all the time, and he had access to the place because everybody knew him. So one day I get this phone call that basically, like, Cedar's like, hey, I'm having a meeting, I need to use the club. And I don't remember what I had to do. I don't think I had to do anything. I think he was able just to get in somehow or whatever. But I end up going down there, and I get down there, and these fuckers got this Doug guy. They tricked him into coming there, and they got him, and they beat the fuck out of him, and then they fucking left. And it was like, what the fuck? Well, you know, you left this fucking guy, and then all of a sudden, there's just fucking cops, like 8 or 10 cop cars, just fucking surround the building all at once. I'm sitting there like, what the fuck? You know, I literally just go down thinking I'm going to go down and hang out with these guys that are just having a meeting at the club. And no, it's a fucking like, holy shit. They got this guy that's fucking ripped him off and they're trying to get the money out. Or I don't know what they're trying to do. I showed up. I'm like, oh, fuck. So, and then like, I like go up to the club and I come back and everybody's gone. It's like, they got him in this whole other office, duct tape, right? And I was carrying a gun at the time. I had a gun on me most times. I was on and off with a gun. I didn't have a gun most times now that I think about it. Because when I had big loads, I did not have a gun because that increased the bust up to insane, where if you just didn't have a gun and you got busted with all that weed, then it just wouldn't be that big a deal. Well, comparatively speaking, if you had a gun. So I hear all these cops surround the fucking building, and they don't really surround the building. They all come in on this one side of the building. They came in on the like 3rd Street, like a lot of cop cars. So I go out the fire escape. I go up the street. So I went up to the falafel place and had a falafel. And I started getting phone calls from Jay that managed the building. He was getting phone calls from people that lived in the building that had called the fucking cops because they had heard somebody fucking yelling and screaming and all the shit that was going on upstairs, right? So I tell him it was nothing. And I guess, did he have to go down there and talk to the cops or something? I don't remember exactly, but basically the cops just fucking left. When the cops were gone, I came back and went upstairs, and dude was sitting there, and I saw him move funny, and he had gotten out of the duct tape, fucking showed him I had a gun, and was like, you know, this wasn't any of my fucking deal, man, and I just want you to fucking get the fuck out of my building, and do whatever the fuck, you know, it's none of my goddamn business, basically. I don't know why the fuck nobody said, oh, hey, can we fucking lure somebody into your building and beat him up? Fuck no! You fucking idiot for asking that. Okay, can I have a meeting down in the club? Sure. Fuck. Anyway, this bullshit started a chain reaction that ended up in fucking that dude, Doug. The story is like his dad was like a cop or something. But his dad didn't even need to be a cop for him to just call in an anonymous tip on Cedar. Right? So Cedar did all this shit to him, right? And fucking but then like that wasn't it. Like the dude would show up at a club and fucking Cedar and would run around everybody and fucking like, oh, we gotta fucking get him, and they chase him out of, you know. So it wasn't like, it's like he ripped you off, you beat him up, and that, you know. And in Doug's head, that was it. He was like, well, you beat me up instead of, you know, whatever. But Cedar was like, well, that was just the beginning. I'm going to beat you up, and then I'm going to fucking, like, chase you and try to beat you up over and over again. Like 2 or 3 times he was chasing him out of clubs on different nights, right? So this guy decided to fucking get rid of Cedar by fucking calling an anonymous tip in to Cedar's probation officer. Cedar had told his probation officers that his address was up here in Brightwood, but in all actuality, he was spending most of his time in our place downtown, right? So now, the next story, or in this particular segment, we'll be continuing on with what happened. If you like this video, go back and watch the rest of my videos. I have a bunch at this point about my life stories, and there's other things there too. Like, subscribe, and maybe if you really are feeling frosty, head on over there to Patreon and become one of my Patreon sponsors.